All right, we're going to go really quick through the NSG 370 transmission, which is in the Wranglers and the Liberties. And to start with, when you're going to take this thing out of here, we're going to pull it out, we're going to rebuild it, we're going to put it back. Okay, you got ready for this? Got good pictures right out of the shop manual. You're going to drain the oil out of it. There's your fill plug for future reference. You put a 3.17 pints of low power manual transmission fluid lubricant MS-9224 to the bottom of the fill plug hole. That's so you can just reach it there. You gotta pull your battery cable off. You notice they always have you pull your battery cable off. Vehicle in neutral position on the hoist. Remove the drain plug, drain fluid, mark your installation reference marks on your propeller shaft. The reason you do that is because if you mark where the propeller shaft came out of a vehicle that's as new as this, if you put it back in exactly the same way they were, then that makes, sometimes if you put it in a different place than it was, you wind up with a vibration you didn't have before, and then you got to go dig for that. If you mark it and put it back, you've eliminated that to begin with. That's why it's a good idea to do that. Pull the transfer case shift cable bracket nuts, illustrated there, and remove the transfer case if equipped. Support the transmission with your jack, remove the mount and the cross member. Looks pretty simple, doesn't it? On the 2.4 engine, remove the catalyst assembly, and you got this. Now this right here, some of you guys have already run into situations where pulling the exhaust off is easier than it's easier on here than it actually is in the real world, because you've got, particularly those GM cars, you got those stupid stainless steel nuts that they put on there because they thought they would be easier to take off, and they just gall and worse than the ones that were rusted on there. You got to remove your slave cylinder nuts. Notice it's on the outside of the transmission on this one. And remove the slave cylinder. Remove the backup lamp switch wiring connector. It's on the side of the transaxle. You see it right there, transmission, no, not transaxle. And then you're going to pull these out. Remove the shift tower bolts. You got to go through the, somebody go through the floor and do that on these things right here. Remove the starter bolts, remove the starter, take the transmission bolt, and remove the transmission. And then we're going to disassemble it here. Through the shift tower opening, the two shift rails, you got to move them forward to engage two gears. It locks the transmission so it won't turn. You're going to remove your counter shaft plug from the front housing with a seal pick. Remove the counter shaft bolt from the housing. Pull the output shaft seal from the rear housing with a seal pick. Remove the output shaft snap ring, 4x4 only. You got a little snap ring right there. Remove the output shaft seal from rear housing. And let's see, here they mark 1, and then 2, and then 3. See, they got this thing set up where it's fairly easy to do. Be great to have this on the computer if you were tearing one of these right down. Stand the transmission on the rear housing, take the housing bolts out, remove the front housing from the rear housing. That way you expose those gears. So you're going to pull your shift rails and support plate bolts. There you go, you can see that. The support plate bolts are right there. This is the support plate they're talking about right here. See that? All right, now you're going to pull your 5th gear synchronizer blocker ring and friction ring. And you're going to set your gear train and shift reels with a gear housing. See, this one right here has got 2 rings there, which is slightly different than what you usually see on these manual transmissions. One's the friction ring takes the place of that little cone thing. And you're going to put it into build fixture 9633. There's an input shaft roller bearing you got to pull out. Remove the main shaft from the rear housing with the remover. That's a special tool, but you can usually figure out something to make that happen. You notice you're pushing that out of there. All right. See how you got that in that holder? Pretty cool, because you can put all that together and make sure it's going to work right before you put it back in the case. Remove the main shaft, counter shaft, and shift rail forks 3 from the fixture. Push 5/6 synchronizer sleeve, which is 1, down on the hub, and remove the detents. The detents are the little spring-loaded hickeys that makes it stay where you click it. And basically it operates with these little places right here. Remove your 5/6 synchronizer sleeve from the hub. Place the main shaft with a 5/6 synchronizer in the build fixture 9648 and put it in a vise. And then you're going to remove your 5/6 synchronizer hub. And this is a synchronizer hub. You notice it's a part of that. Pull that snap ring off. This will give you an idea of what it's like to do this. You got to move the hub and 6th gear synchronizer rings with a 3-jaw puller. That's basically a standard puller like what we've got in here. We got some of those. Put the puller jaws under the 6th gear synchronizer rings. So you're pulling them all together. So remove the main shaft from fixture 9648, turn the fixture over, and the vise and set the opposite. What you looking for? Huh?
You got a fry the brain.
Yeah, I'm frying your brains, okay. And the main shaft in the fixture. All right, okay, remove the main shaft from fixture 9648, turn fixture over and vise, set the opposite of the main shaft in the fixture. See, this is my fingers right here. You might look like it looks just like I'm doing it. Remove the 6th gear and bearing. 3rd gear and 4th gear are serviced with the main shaft only. Remember that. If you're going to get those, you're going to have to get the main shaft in its entirety. Remove the reverse gear synchronizer sleeve off the synchronizer hub. Beautiful illustrations here in this. Remove the reverse synchronizer hub, detents. Now see, if you're just flying through this thing and you're pulling these parts out and throwing them down with reckless abandon, you see you can get in trouble. And then there's somebody who shall remain nameless, but his initials are Brian Adams, came to me yesterday, and he says, I took the steering column out of the Sonata, which he had actually pulled the steering column apart and it was dangling, and he says, I don't know where this spring goes. I said, I don't know where it goes either. I don't have that stuff memorized. You better find it. Didn't you help him find out where it went back? Or somebody
What
did.
about the little metal plate?
Yeah, did you ever find that?
Is it there?
Yeah.
Oh,
That's a nice dodge. He put it in the glove box, I bet. It's in there. That way he's sort of telling the truth, right? Remove the reverse synchronizer hub with a 3-jaw puller. Place the puller jaws in the detent openings. They got places for them, see? You can use for that. Remove the reverse gear synchronizer ring. That's a synchronizer ring right there, basically. Sometimes they call that a blocker ring. Sometimes these are made of brass. Sometimes they're made of some sort of sintered steel, you know. Pull your reverse gear off and your bearing. There's your bearing on the inside. Now this has got to be, this is like a Swiss watch. It's got to be put back together just right. And the problem I've had with trainer transmissions is the more times people take them apart and put them back together, the more they deteriorate. And that's like true the more you work on cars, you know, the cars and all that. I'm sure the trainer car entropy has now started with the Sonata, since we've got parts that we didn't know where they went back, so we threw them in the glove box. All right. Remove reverse gear bearing race, thrust washer, first gear with puller. Place the puller jaws under the first gear. See all the stuff you got to pull apart with a puller. You know what I mean? This stuff doesn't just lift off of there. It's got to be stronger than that. Pull the first gear synchronizer ring. 1-2 synchronizer sleeve down on the hub. Remove the 1-2 synchronizer hub detents, balls, and springs. Remove the 1-2 synchronizer sleeve from the synchronizer hub. That's the synchronizer sleeve right there. That's the hub. Okay. Then there's your snap ring pliers. You've seen snap ring pliers before. And doesn't this look plumb easy? You could memorize this fairly easy as all these steps are and everything. Remove your 1-2 synchronizer hub and synchronizer ring and second gear shaft with a press. Put it in a press to do that. See how you got the little plates right here? And you're pushing on that and push it off of there. Press the shaft through. And the counter shaft at 1 and 3/4 synchronizer 2 are serviced as an assembly only. You've got to have that all in one piece you're going to buy. If you start buying manual transmission parts like that, unless you know where there's one you can borrow some parts from, you're going to be paying through the nose for those parts, because you know you'll pay $1,200, $1,500. Sometimes you'll pay as much for some of the parts as you will for the whole transmission. Pull the input shaft retainer bolts and remove the retainer. That's a bearing retainer you're looking at right there. And you look at two counters, the countershaft bearing, 2 bolts, and remove the retainers there. And a little thing there, remove the countershaft bearing from the housing too with a hammer and driver. Remove the input shaft bearing retainer bolts and remove those input shaft bearing from housing. See, there's your input shaft bearing right here, and there's your bearing retainer down there, and then there's that little bearing retainer on that side too. So remove the input shaft seal from the housing with a hammer and driver, input shaft bearing, the snap ring. This is really, really good. Now, this right here is your little spanner, your splitter we call it. I basically, you put that thing together around the bearings, you can get stuff off like that. However, they've got this wrong. This is a bad picture. And I'll tell you why. I found out a long time ago that if you put those bolts across this, and you got your two heavy pieces of steel here, and you put your bolt across here, when you start jacking on that bearing, what's going to happen?
It's going
to bend the bolts. You're going to bend these. Even if they're pretty big, those bolts aren't made to do anything except pull that together. So what you're supposed to do is turn this around sideways so these are laying across this gap rather than having this the way that this picture shows it. So I mean, whenever I was pressing some stuff off eons ago, back in the 70s, I put one of these things sideways like that, and I was pressing something off and it bent the bolts. And I was thinking, what the heck, And then I noticed the next guy turned it sideways, But you learn from that. Learn from my mistake. Don't put the bolts across the gap. Let this heavy part of this go across the gap. That's what you need. Remove the reverse idler shaft gear shaft bolt from the housing. Thread the idler gear shaft into the shaft. Work the shaft out of the idler gear. And then there's your idler gear shaft bolt. Pull that out of there, You got to pull the idler shaft. And remove the reverse idler gear shaft support. Remove the reverse idler gear thrust washer. Remove the reverse idler gear and bearing. Break the plastic countershaft roller cage with a screwdriver, then remove the cage and roller bearing. Jonathan would really enjoy that because he likes breaking stuff. And right here, remove the counter shaft roller bearing shell from the rear housing with this remover right here. That's a special remover and a slide hammer. You know, the slide hammer goes bang, bang, bang and jerks it right out of there. Remove the main shaft bearing retainer bolts and remove retainers. Remove bearing from housing with a hammer and a driver. Jonathan likes that too. Okay, clean everything up. Don't use acid or corrosive solvents. Dry all of them out, set bearings with compressed air. Remember what I used to tell you? I pull that, when I was pulling that older mechanic that was working with me at the Volkswagen place, I pulled this Mazda RX-7 transmission out because it was noisy in every gear except fourth. Anybody remember what the problem is when you got one that's noisy in every gear except fourth? What do you think? Noisy in every gear except fourth. What is it? We've talked about this before. Noisy in every gear except fourth. Anybody remember? Haven't been watching my YouTube videos, have you? Because it was on there before. That front bearing right around your input shaft is bad if it's noisy in every gear except fourth, because that was not loaded in fourth gear. However, to pull the transmission off, I stood it up in the steam cleaner bay over there, fired up the steam cleaner, got it really, really good and hot, actually the pressure washer, the hot pressure washer. And I just stuck it down in that transmission and let it just shove all of the oil and everything and just cook it all out of there. And then when I got through, all the metal was hot and all the water just steamed off of it.
Yeah, that one works good.
Yeah, and I put it over there on the bench, and when I tore it down, it was really clean. There was no oil anywhere. I mean, I was working with a clean transmission. It was real easy to do the work. And the older mechanic says, I've been working here for 12 years. I've never seen anybody clean a manual transmission with water. I said, what did it hurt? Tell me what kind of damage I'm going to do to that thing because it's so hot. You know, you got the thing at boiling anyway, and all of that water steams off those gears. It's not like you're putting it back in with a bunch of water in there. I guarantee you, look in there right now, it's dry as a bone. Now, I still don't like it, you know, whatever, you know. But I mean, I had nice, clean, dry gears to work with instead of greasy mess, you know. See where I'm going with that? I mean, that's common sense right here. Of course, my dad, I think kind of like my dad, he thinks outside the box usually. But anyway. Allow the bearings to air dry or wipe them dry with clean shop towels. All right. Minor corrosion. We're not going to talk about that right now unless I back up. Minor corrosion, nicks, pitting. You can smooth it with 400 grit emery and polish it out with a crocus cloth. Bearings. You can inspect them for worn, cracked, flat-spotted, brittle. Gears. Look for worn, chipped, or cracked teeth. Main shaft. Look for worn splines. Snap ring grooves. What's a spline? Tell me what a spline is. Anybody got any splines in your hand there? That's those long, like on the end of the output shaft where you put your drive shaft in, a long, you know, sort of like teeth. Inspect bearing surfaces for wear. Look at that. Who in the world misspelled this? Somebody's spell check didn't catch it.
I got splines.
Yes, there are some splines on there. That's right. There you go. All right, disassembly. We're still taking it apart. Look at here. This is not very hard, is it? Third gear and fourth gear are serviced with main shaft only. You got to buy the main shaft if you got to get those. Can you see how much money you'd spend on this if you found worn, chipped, or cracked anything? Inspect your bearing surfaces for wear or flat spots. Inspect for worn or chipped or cracked teeth. Which part is this? What is this part? What is this part? Brian? What is this part?
Splines.
No. What is this part?
Oh, the output shop, or input shop.
That's what it says right there. Why didn't you read the words? Okay. There we go. All right. Now, synchronizer components, look for worn, chipped, or cracked teeth and burned friction surface. Okay, the friction surface is right here. Flaking off friction material. Some of them have got a little lining on them. It's kind of like the lining on an automatic transmission clutch or something. And see that particular, this right here bites into that, cuts through the oil so that that can synchronize the speed of those gears together like that. Shift forks. Inspect the shift forks and shoes for wear and distortion. You got them little plastic inserts on there. You got to pay attention to those. If they're worn, the shift forks got to be replaced. Now, like I say, be careful when you got little parts like this. Don't lose those because sometimes it'll shut your job down for a while. If you got one on your lift with the transmission out, you got issues, right? One time at the Ford place over there was a guy that had a transmission up on the lift with a Thunderbird. They had a manual transmission in it. And somebody broke into the shop that night and they stole the transmission out of that Thunderbird because there was just one bolt holding it in. And they thought, yeah, I got me a new manual transmission for a Thunderbird. The only problem with that transmission was toast. It was all destroyed on the inside and he was going to replace it with, and they stole a junk transmission and didn't even know it. I always thought that was funny. Input shaft retainer. Now what goes here? What slides on here? Somebody tell me.
Input shaft.
Now all the input shafts going through here. What slides on here?
Oh, slave stone.
Well, sort of, yeah, I mean, this is where the throwout bearing slides. You guys knew that because you just had one of these parts. Use welding gloves when handling heated components. Duh, you're not gonna burn yourself there, you know. A bearing heater is used to assemble some components. Only use a bearing heater, hot plate, and follow instructions. You know, heat components to 212, minimum 350, maximum. Never use an open flame to heat components. So you're basically gonna heat them in really hot stuff, right? Hot water, whatever. If a component is discolored after heating, it's been overheated and must not be used. So you don't want that going on. All right, reuse snap ring. We're going to put it back together now. This shouldn't take long, should it? Reuse snap rings in their original location for the thickest snap ring that will fit. Anybody here want to know what a tolerance stack-up is? No open flames in the classroom. Shut off the cigarette lighter and quit heating up the piece of pipe. All right, anybody know what a tolerance stack-up is? Stack-up, not
Isn't
slack-up.
it where they take clutches and automatic transmission and stack them up, and then they take a fiddler gauge and go in there and make sure the clearance is right?
Well, not really. A tolerance stack-up means that every place you've measured it all the way through, it's within spec, but it's on the loose side of the spec. And whenever you've got everything on the loose side of the spec and you add all that up, now you've got too much slack. Even though everywhere you measured it was just a little bit too much. I mean, it wasn't just a little bit too much, it was within the range, but on the loose side. So if you've got a tolerance stack up, you're going to have some slack there that you don't want. So basically, they need to be all kind of in the middle if you get right down to it. All right. So install second gear on the bearing. Install inner synchronizer friction ring on second gear. Install outer synchronizer friction ring on second gear. See, we're putting all this back together now. Install a 1-2 synchronizer hub with installer 8228 and a press. Align hub dent openings with synchronizer rings. You got to pay attention to how you're putting it back together. What really bothers me is when I'm putting one back together and there's a part that could go either way, just putting it together, but I'm not sure which way's right and the picture's not clear. You know what I mean? It's really difficult sometimes, you know, to figure out which way it goes back, and you say, man, if I put this together wrong, I'm going to have a first and second chatter, and I'm going to have to pull the transmission out and turn it back down. Okay, all right. Install 1-2 synchronizer sleeve and push to the bottom of the synchronizer hub. Install 1-2 synchronizer detent, springs and balls, and then there's your little detent. The detent is a place where the ball snaps into a little dimple so that it will stay where you put it. That's what a detent is. First gear blocker ring into the synchronizer hub. Watch how we're doing this. First gear outer friction ring, install the first gear inner blocker ring, install first gear and bearing, then the center of the 1-2 synchronizer sleeve on the hub. Heat the first gear thrust washer and reverse gear bearing race with the bearing heater. You guys knew there was such thing as a bearing heater, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, now you know there's such thing. You knew already. You seen them? United.
A source of heat is a bearing heater.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. There we go. Using welding gloves. Install first gear thrust washer. You know, welding gloves are pretty thick, but they're basically saying don't burn your hands, right? You could probably get some of those gloves like Brian wore slam out the first semester that he was here, and you could get away with using those, right? You know, those leather ones you had that you just wore down, you just practically wore holes in them using them. All right, install reverse gear and bearing, reverse gear synchronizer friction ring, install reverse gear synchronizer hub on main shaft with installer W262, and a press align the hub detent opening with the friction ring, reverse gear synchronizer hub detents. Going to put your reverse gear synchronizer sleeve on the center sleeve synchronizer and remove the main shaft from fixture 9648. Turn the fixture over in the basket and install the opposite end of the main shaft. Install 6th gear and bearing. Install 6th gear synchronizer blocker ring. You notice how small 6th gear is. A little bitty gear, right? Why would 6th gear be so small?
Because it ain't got much torque on it.
Yeah. Well, basically because of the speed you're wanting to get out of it. Right? All right. Install 6th gear synchronizer blocker ring on 6th gear. We gotta get that. All right, friction ring. You got a blocker ring and a friction ring on this. It's a little different from some of the ones that you guys have torn down, the ones that we just torn one down. The 5-6 synchronizer hub with an installer. Detent hub opening 3 with friction rings. 5-6 synchronizer hubs offset and must install large offset as shown. Now this is important information they put in there. That's what I like about these pictures. See, they even look good when you blow them up. Install a counter shaft bearing into the rear housing with the installer 9643 and handle C4171. You can usually get this stuff in without it. You know, I know Jonathan uses sockets and stuff, so he'll be able to make that happen, right? All right, so install reverse idler gear into the housing. So we're putting it all back together. and idler gear, thrust washer, install the shaft support, and then you got to put your idler gear shaft in with the shaft bolt hole aligned with the shaft support hole. Be really careful to make sure you line this hole up because you're coming through from the outside with that. Put your idler gear shaft bolt into the housing. You see from the outside there. Put your 404 shaft seal into the rear housing with the install. If you leave any of these steps out, you're courting disaster, right? Installer 9638. You're basically putting that little seal in there with that. You can put it in there without that if you have to, you know, but it's good to have it. If you got it, that's great. Most of the time working at a dealership, they'll have it. Unless the tool room looks like a tornado has hit it and the stuff is all over the shop, nobody knows where it is. Put your input shaft bearing on the input shaft with the bearing retainer facing fifth gear. Input shaft bearing with the installer and the press. You're putting that together. Install the input shaft seal installer. Install your input shaft. So here's your input shaft. This is what goes here. What goes here? What connects to this?
Tail shaft.
Huh?
Is that the back of the transmission?
Not if it's the input shaft.
Oh yeah, input shaft housing.
The clutch. The inside of the clutch goes here. It's sort of, you know, you get a little parallax going on there because it's a little bit, you know. Install the input shaft bearing retainers, tighten bolts. I can tell when everybody's zoned out because I asked a really simple question. Everybody's going, huh? All right, so watch this. Input shaft retainer 1 and tighten bolts. You should have been through my Power Stroke diesel class I did in Fort Worth where I walked around 8 hours doing this stuff. 50 guys in there. I paid $150 to hear me talk. And when I gave them time to leave early if they wanted to, they all sat there for another 30 minutes because they wanted to hear everything I had to say. All right. Input shaft retainer. Install input shaft retainer and tighten the bolt. See the input shaft retainer right here? There you go. Install the counter shaft bearing into the housing with bearing retainer lip facing up. Important piece of information there. If you're winging it, you may miss that. However, those retainers wouldn't go on there if you didn't have it facing up. All right, there's your final assembly. Put the main shaft into the build fixture. You notice you got a little fixture here. Install the counter shaft. That's it. We got to back up. Look at the last 15 slides again. Install the counter shaft into the build fixture, and I like that little cool thing. Install the oil slinger on the counter shaft between reverses. Why do we need an oil slinger?
Just sling the oil.
Slings the oil so it lubricates things, right? You gotta have an oil slinger. Some of them will have a little bucket to catch the oil and it'll drain it down in an oil bearing. All right, so come on, don't be hateful. There we go. Install the shift forks and rails into the build fixture and the counter shaft main shaft. See how all this is put together and how it all works? Cool stuff. All right, install the rear housing on the main shaft with the installer. Remove the rear housing with the main shaft, counter shaft, and the shift rails from the fixture. Set the assembly in the rear housing with the shaft pointing up. Fifth gear synchronizer friction ring has to be put on now. All right. I think I've overwhelmed my computer or something because I've been changing pictures so fast. All right. Install fifth gear blocker ring on the synchronizer hub and hold the blocker ring and center the synchronizer sleeve. Input shaft roller bearing on the main shaft. You can see the progression here. Shift rail, support plate, bolts, and tighten to 8 Newton meters. This is why some people have the idea that all you have to know if you want to be a mechanic is how to bust your knuckles and get your hands greasy, right? All they have to do is put a single power steering line on it and they know, right? They know. That power steering line was a Sunny Boy, wasn't it? And I don't know what we'd have done if we didn't have Jonathan to get it started, because none of the rest of us could get it started. All right. All right. I went past the slide. I don't like that. All right. Apply your Mopar gasket maker. Oh, goodness. This is the stuff that you guys despise. It's the same stuff. It's that anaerobic sealant and all that. Of course, he said the other stuff he put on there didn't hold either, so he says it's still leaking. But we got to feel. So install the front housing on the rear housing and tighten the bolts to 28 Newton meters, 21 foot-pounds. Can you convert Newton meters to foot-pounds in your head?
Short foot.
I can't do it either, so don't expect that. Install the output shaft seal on the rear housing and the installer through the shift tower opening. Move the 2 shift rails forward to lock the transmission in 2 gears. I'm going to sneeze in a minute. All right. Install counter shaft bolt into the front housing and tighten to 100 Newton meters, which is 74 foot-pounds. That's a nice little benchmark. Remember, 100 Newton meters is 74 foot-pounds. Who can remember that? Can anybody remember that?
What did you say?
100 Newton meters is 74 foot-pounds.
Almost did.
100 Newton meters is 74 foot-pounds.
I'm not remember that.
Well, you better. That's all I got to say. You'll be able to pop that.
I'll forget it in 5 minutes.
Install counter shaft plug in the front housing with installer 7829 and handle C141. Move shift rails to neutral. Apply gasket maker. Ooh, that's the stuff we don't like anymore. All right, to the tower, install the shift tower and tighten the bolts. Install the backup lamp switch. See, we're getting to the end here. Install the transmission on the engine. Woo, you're gonna put it in there. Tighten the bolts to 41. You know they got torque specs on the bell housing bolts. Yeah, they do. That's what it is. You just tighten them until they say whoa. You know they have dowels on there that you got to line. You know it either will be around the bolt or they got. You know why those dowels are there?
Keep the transmission from doing all this.
It'll does like that and it'll loosen the bolts. It'll try to fall off the engine. Tighten the bolts on to 67 Newton meters. My friend Ed Thomas that I worked at that gas station with had an old Plymouth that he had stuffed a hot rod engine in and a 350 turbo automatic transmission. He had a whole bunch of different transmissions and had holes cut in the floor and all that kind of thing. And he had that thing jacked up, going who knows wonder how fast, because he used to, go out on his private track and race it some. And he was going around the corner out there just past Level Plains, and that transmission exploded. Just all the pieces, and it got transmission all over the windshield and slid all over the place. He blew up 350 turbo automatic transmissions that he bought from Montgomery Ward, and finally he put a standard in it so that we wouldn't keep doing it. He just had too much power on that. The weak link in the chain was the transmission on that one. On a 2.4 liter engine, you tighten the bolts to 75 or Newton meters or 55 foot-pounds if you're left-handed. Well, the lower dust shield, tighten the bolts. All right, so how we're stabbing that thing in there. What's this part right here? Yeah, it's the pressure plate, right? All right. Clean shift tower and mating surface and apply Mopar gasket maker. Ooh, that's the stuff we don't like. See what I'm saying? These factory people, how they like to use that stuff?
That says Mopar. We got anaerobic.
Same stuff. Mopar makes the same stuff. It's all made by the same. Permatex probably made it for them. Now, my dad used to use this stuff, and I probably should have got you guys, on Volkswagens that was made by Permatex that you paint on there with a brush, and it's like tar. And it sealed really good. And he used it on Volkswagen bug case halves. And, whenever he was putting together, he'd paint all that around there and put them together and it'd make it not leak. But I bet, I didn't think about that, but that would probably have been some good stuff to use because it's real tacky and sticky and it wouldn't have a problem probably. You got the brack-up lamp. See the brack-up lamp? I guarantee you spell check caught that and they left the squiggly line in place, right? All right, install the slave cylinder. All right, install your catalyst assembly on a 2.4 liter engine. Okay, and install the transmission cross member, tighten the bolts to 35 foot-pounds, or even giving you on that. Most of the time we just zip them up with this pack wrench. Install a transfer case cable. You get the point. We're going back where we were. Remove the fill plug and fill it with lubricant. If you forget to do that, your whole job is defunct. I mean, it's kind of like cranking the engine without oil in it or something. It's not good.
Sounds like mine.
All right, here we go. It's best not to let somebody forget that they did that, right?
Yeah.
If you blow it off, they may do it again. But if you make it a very unpleasant experience for them, they're going to say, crap, I'm never going to do that again. You know what I mean?
So they gotta remember, what is it, oil filters back on.
Yeah. Well, that's a good thing too. But I guarantee you, I was really not happy about that either. What I was doing, I was talking on the phone and trying to do an oil change at the same time, and they sent me the wrong oil filter, and I managed to lower it down and put the oil in it, and when I cranked it up and I saw the oil going everywhere, I says, I think I need to turn this off. Then we had a mess to clean up. But I mean, basically it was, I got out of sync. What happened over there was he did 2 operations underneath the car and 2 operations on top of the car, or 1 on top of the car, and he thought he was done. Because it was sort of like, an oil change you're thinking is a no-brainer, but it's real easy to make a mistake like that. There's your torque specs.
Leave it well.
Counter shaft bolts 100 foot-pounds. I'm not 100 Newton meters, sorry, that's 74 foot-pounds, I said that wrong. There's your special tools, bearing splitter, hub installer, slide hammer, there's your handle. And these really should have been at the first, but there's your build fixture. You could probably get, these right here are usually Miller tool numbers. You could buy one of those if you needed to. So if you ever have to rebuild one of these, be aware of the fact that if you ever have to build one of these, there's going to be some tools needed. We went through about 135 slides in not very much time. So you guys just rebuilt a 370. How about that? Is that good?